What's your opinion on short-term mission trips? Are they worth it? Do they actually bring any value? Are they even biblical? Are they just a glorified vacation?
No mundo.
Hey guys, my name's Jory, and I just wanted to introduce you guys to my friends here. This is Luke Miller, also known as Lucus, which I spell wrong all the time when we're filling out passports and tickets, but it's okay because God's got this. Luke, say hi.
Hello.
And this is Micah Bosewell, another guy here. And it's like, why do I have these guys here? Because about 2 years ago, we went on a mission trip together to Brazil. And I just kind of want to walk through that with you guys and kind of get their perspectives on that trip and kind of our, not even just the trip, but leading up to that trip. First of all, I kind of want to get some background. First of all, with me, I've been doing, I don't even know if you call them short-term mission trips because I've actually lived overseas for months, or even, I think, when I was in Brazil, I lived there for about a year. So right after I got saved, I was my last year of high school, went off to Wyoming. God called me to go to this organization called Youth with a Mission. And in the concept of this school, you spend 3 months in the classroom learning about, the heart of God, evangelism, different aspects of Bible, and then how to hear God's voice, be led by the Holy Spirit. And then you spend 3 months somewhere in the world applying what you learned. So on the mission trip. So you spend 3 months on these short-term mission trips. And while I was on this first mission trip, we went to West Africa. And while we were there, I started to kind of struggle to understand what those questions I asked before, are we here for the right reasons? Is this actually serving a purpose? Is this more about me or is this more about people? And I think they're good questions to ask, but, and I think some of us have asked those questions. Actually, now we're going to get to that a little later. I think Luke's got kind of a story with that. But I started reading a book. I don't even know if it was on the mission trip or was after, but it's actually called Revolution in World Missions. It's on Amazon. I think the guy has a website. But I'm going to butcher his name, but it's K.P. Yohanan. And I read this book. It was quite a few years ago, but I don't remember everything in it. But one thing I did remember was his view on missions and the first world, the Western world going into the mission field. Was it valuable? And he kind of gives his take on it. And one thing he kind of talks about is the whole thing about how much money it costs for like an American to go be on the mission field long term, compared to how many like local pastors you can train and support their families. And like it really impacted me in a way. I was like, he wasn't saying Americans shouldn't go overseas or Europeans shouldn't go overseas, but his perspective was really good. So if you're interested in that book, it's, we'll have a link in the description, but I thought it was good. I think you said you started reading it. You started on the plane ride, right? I
did. I read probably a quarter of it on the plane ride down.
And I think, and so kind of a background before I go into that is, this would have been in 2021, right? 2021, right?
August.
Yeah. So Luke, you had never been even out of the country before this, have you?
No.
This was your first passport. You even applied for the passport this time, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So Luke hadn't even been out of this, but now Micah, this was your second trip. Where did you actually go the first time?
So I went to India in 2017. It was we were sitting in service and the pastor was like, "Hey, I'm going to India. Is anybody willing to go with me?" And like my hand's like up and I'm like, what is going on? And I've always kind of wanted to go on mission trips and stuff. And it was always for the wrong reasons though. Right. So, I always wanted to go. So I was like, man, to go to a mission trip and like spend time on the beach, like sweet,
okay.
So,
yeah.
But like at that point in time, my heart was like, I want to be able to teach people about Jesus and,
sure.
and the miracles and stuff like that.
And you weren't just going with any team. You were going with someone who was very seasoned,
led by the Holy Spirit
in the mission field. Sure.
Strong in the word.
Yeah. And so when I brought this trip up, I don't remember our conversation very well about how we even decided that you were going. I don't know if I had
on the first Brazil trip. The first one?
Yeah.
I'm not sure either.
I don't either. I don't remember how. I don't know if I came to you personally or I was asking people just in general. I don't remember.
No, I think you came to me personally because you had a group of about 6 or 7 guys, I think, that you was like, hey, these are the people I'm thinking. And I think me going to India, you was kind of like, I think Micah's, he's got that experience too. And
it wasn't just, it's like, hey, they'd be cool to go on the trip with me. It was, we always try to be led by the Spirit. As we look back on the trip, I think it was a very I think we did, I don't want to boast in us, but I think it was pretty well led. I think we did very well in that. And, it's all the grace of God. It was different with you though. And I remember we were actually at a friend of ours, Chad Martin's. I think it was just it was actually our Friday night meetings. We were doing it at Chad's. Was it? Or was he just, was he just visiting? Or it was a Friday meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I believe. You know what? It may not have been. It may have been. He does volleyball in the summer times on Sunday.
I'm wondering if that's what it was.
I believe it was. I think we were there hanging out on a Sunday afternoon. We played some volleyball, and he had a large backyard, and you were discussing the mission.
Yeah, and I don't think I might have actually been, there was a group, I think Jeff was there and Chad was there in that moment. And I don't know what sparked the conversation, but I had talked about something about how I encourage anyone. I was saying something along the lines of like, I encourage anyone to at least do it once. And you would kind of, and I'll just use the word rebuttal. You challenged the thought, I think, is, and you were kind of like, it's like, well, is this about me or am I going, kind of share your thoughts, and because you had talked about someone else going on, you had a conversation with them.
So I was talking to this gentleman from work, and he had gone to some South American country, in like Ecuador, El Salvador, I can't remember, but they were drilling wells, and his group had gone down, and so I asked him, was there a shortage of people who could drill these wells? He said no. There's plenty of grown adult men in this little town they stayed with, and so I was like, well, did they not know how to run the drill? He's like, no, they knew how to run the drill. So the only holdup was the cost of the diesel. So my question there is, would we not have served these people better had we provided jobs for these people? We could have paid them an hourly wage for the price of the plane ride to this country, and he was in agreement. And my question was it a selfish trip? I mean, because that's always been my concern. Obviously, I wanted to go on a mission trip, but is it about me? Is it a selfish trip? Am I going because I want to go on a mission trip? And so that was one of my holdups. I've never been on a mission trip. I've never left the country because I always thought, well, it's because I want to travel the world, and that's obviously not useful to the Lord.
Sure. Yeah, I think that reminded me. I think that's why. That might have been when I introduced this book to you.
I believe it was.
Because it was kind of my perspective, because I was on the trip, and there was a lot of times in the trip we had a lot of time off, and we did things, very touristy things, and we preached, we were in churches, we were serving, we cleaned a hospital, and as we were cleaning that hospital, I was kind of like, I was like, is this? I don't know. It's great. I'm cleaning a hospital, but I remember a scripture that the Lord had shown me. I believe it was in John, and Jesus had just fed 5,000 people. Okay, and he goes across the lake, and the people follow him, and they actually I don't know. I still to this day don't know how that works, but to this day how the people ran, they beat the boat there, but he gets there. And they're like, he's like, how'd you get here? And he goes, like, you're not following me because you saw miracles. You're following me because of the bread. Don't seek the bread that perishes, but the eternal life bread, And what that spoke to me was like, I don't want to go on these mission trips. And, and I'm not condemning building hospitals and building schools and all these things. But in the end, if the gospel is not preached, that's a lot of healthy, educated people, hungry, full belly people going to hell. I was like, what have I really done? And that was my struggle, And I started reading that book by the K.P. Yohanan, and, he talks about how, it's like, he's really descriptive. He goes through, like, it's like, so there's this American and his family. They're going to go live in Timbuktu or whatever. And he goes through, it's like, here's the airfare price. Here's he's got to go learn the language. He's got to go do all these classes, and all these things. He got to get his visas and all these things, right? And you got to buy a house in this country. Got to do all these things. And he put the total in this book, like, here's how much money it's going to cost for 1 year. He said, he was like, it was a ridiculous number about how many Indian pastors you could supply their livelihood to do their work in that country for a year. And it was a big number. And I was like, I was kind of humble. I was like, wow. I was like, and he wasn't like, he wasn't saying, no, Americans shouldn't leave. They should just stay in America. He wasn't saying that. But he was making a point, I was like, they know the culture. They know the language. They know they know how to get around, and stuff like that, right? And so that was his point in the book. And when you said that to me, it reminded me of that. And I remember, when you left that night, I was kind of like, I remember someone asked us, like, well, is it about me, or is it about me, or is it about other people? And I said, yes. That was my answer. I was like, there's no escaping it. You're going to be impacted no matter what you do, and stuff. So anyway, yeah, that was my conversation with Luke. So we were, I don't even know, when did you decide you were going?
I don't even remember when you asked me, to be honest.
I
had prayed about it, and I think it was through that same conversation, because you had kind of shared your heart with the trip and what it was about, and why you would be going, and I don't even remember. So whenever I gave that opinion, I don't believe you had even asked me to go on the trip.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the case. And it may actually. I think your wife might have kicked that ball, if I recall correctly.
I think now that you
she
say
had
that.
kind of nudged you. It's like you should take that guy. And
Yeah.
And then because I remember you telling me that when you did ask me to go, and I think my workload is heavy where I work, and so my only concern was, can I take this time off? And I prayed about it, and I just kind of came to the consensus, I am taking this time off, whether they say I can or not. I'm going.
And I think that's key. Not a single person who went that year went just because I think it'd be fun.
Right.
There was a spirit-led decision because, like I said, we're all family men. Yeah. We have kids, we have a wife, we have a home, we have bills. It was approximately 2 weeks, I'd say, around that amount of time we weren't going to be in America. And so it's a sacrifice. It's like, so I don't want to go build wells. I don't want to go, it's like, because I'd be happy to give $100 to pay for 4 guys to have a livelihood that whole week to build a well for this church or whatever, and stuff. Like I said, again, I'm not condemning people that are doing that. It's just, for me, I was like, why are we going? And we're going to walk into that, talk about that. Why did we go? But there was the whole thing about each one of us, we had that peace of God in our hearts to go. And you need that, and it's like, and so let's talk about that preparation time. So we didn't go the next week. It was months. Actually, we actually had to reschedule because this was right in the middle of COVID, and so we're going to talk about the natural. We're going to talk about the supernatural because I want to get you guys' points. We're going to laugh. We're going to, I want you guys to share stories about, your experiences. Luke, this was your first time to even leave America. Mike, this was your second trip, but you had very similar experiences on both, and it's very natural, but also supernatural things going on. It was a blessed trip, and I know even I talked to you guys today about how the church down there is still sharing about what's going on down there because of what they said happened that weekend, or that time that we were there. Not that it's about us, but as we look back, I remember I keep telling you guys, it's like as I look back on the way God structured this trip, it was very unique to me. I'd never experienced it that way, and we're going to go into that. And I want to share and kind of, as you guys point out things. But so we're talking about so actually, first thing I want to talk about is Luke. What was actually I'll get Micah. I got you, Micah. What was you have a family? What was your wife leading into this, and
so like I said, I went to India.
We love our wives. We're not here to take it serious.
So
they're going to watch this. So.
I went to India in 2017, right? So that one was there was a lot of battling with my flesh, in that one. Like at first it was like, I feel like I'm led to go, but as time went on, I was like, I don't know, I'm not going. And then it come out 6 weeks before we was leaving. I'm like, I'm going. I got to get a passport, a visa, all this stuff, right? So that was a 3-week trip, and it was really tough on the whole family, really. Sure. My kids didn't want to see me leave, obviously, and my daughter would have been like 2.5, and I don't know. I want to say she was so stressed out and stuff that like she started losing her hair and everything because I was gone for so long. Yeah. And, she missed Daddy, and then my boy, and he was just a terror, actually. So my wife she's super stressed out for 3 weeks because she's dealing with these two.
This is India, right?
This is the India trip. Yep. And I'm just, so whenever it come to the Brazil trip in 21, obviously all that comes back to memory, but they're 5 years older now, right? Yeah. So it's going to be okay. And it was better, but they were still like, they don't want me to leave. Sure. Like they want to be on me all the time. Like, sure. Leaving to come here. It was just like, no, we don't want you to go.
For a 3-hour video shoot.
Yeah. So, it's, and, they don't know about the upcoming trip yet. Yeah. But just because we're trying to keep that time frame of,
and it's months away.
So, sure.
Yeah. You don't want people, but there are kids, they I got 4 and they just want to, we had a sectional and they just want to sit on me, it's like, I bought this couch so we can all have a place to sit, and Luke, sorry.
No, I was just saying, and they understand why
sure.
I'm doing it and why I'm going
that's
now.
Helpful.
So, and they know we're not going to build the wells or drill for oil or whatever, or we're going to preach the gospel and share Jesus, right? So.
And how about you? I mean, what was the conversation, because, it's not something we can just, it's like, hey, I'm going. I don't care if you agree or not, we can't, and I know that wasn't the case for any of us, but what was your journey into that,
So at the time, my wife and I, we were not super financially stable. We were still living somewhat paycheck to paycheck at the time, and then we were trying to buy a house. I mean, we had a little nest egg, but we were about to spend it all to buy a house, and so it was. Every dime we had saved, it became a question, like, can we even pull this off? Can we make it happen? And it was a little stressful in that sense. My children, they were going through a transition as well, so things were already a little interesting to deal with to begin with, because we began to homeschool, and then we had and then, like I say, we were going to change locations. Like, I was trying to buy a house while we were gone. I was still talking to a realtor, talking to the bank, and all this other stuff. And it was an interesting. The life at home was kind of interesting to balance. Now, I was very fortunate. We were able to have internet, so we could discuss. I mean, we had a great location that allowed us to have FaceTime with our children and reach back and forth, and it kind of helped to smooth some of that out. But there was a fair amount of stress in the whole business.
Yeah, I think also, like, with you though, and I'm not sure, I can't remember my message with you, Micah, but I know everyone had to take work off, but there was wasn't there a big project at the time, and you had to kind of pass the baton, but with still having that in your back of your mind's like, if this goes awry,
Yeah, so I was in the process of changing positions at work, and so I was taking on more responsibility, and I was leaving, and I was going to leave this job for 2 weeks, and I built bridges for a living, and we were building 2 bridges at the same time in the same location, and I was leaving all of this responsibility on someone else, and it's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility. I mean, I've been doing it for a long time, so I'm well practiced at it. I sometimes hold it well, sometimes I don't. But to leave it on someone who has only been in the company for a year or two was a lot for him. I mean, it was a lot for him. And the superintendent I had worked for at the time, he was used to my style of leadership. Both of us had worked together for almost 10 years. We'd worked together for a long time, and things had gone really well. I mean, we'd kind of fit into a groove, and we had figured each other out. And I was also leaving him with someone else who had been in the company for a year and a half, and a very capable guy. I mean, he was a very capable guy. He could do the work, but there was obviously, anytime you hand work to a different leader, it's different. He leads different. He acts different. He talks different. I mean, it was just it was different. So I had a heavy level of concern as to how things would go without me. And you think it was only 2 weeks, but on a construction site, two weeks is a lot. And
sure.
There are millions of dollars in the wings in 2 weeks, and so it was difficult.
A lot of natural things.
It was difficult the first couple of days just to put the baton down, because the goal was to clear your mind, and I don't want to carry this for 2 weeks. We are here to preach the gospel, and I am putting this down. And
I think when you're led by the Spirit, it's good to have that peace, because it almost reminds you too. It's like, say, hey, I'm here for a purpose, and I need to focus on this. And it's like, that's what's so amazing about our God, is like, he's like, it's like, well, God, what about this back home? What about this back home? What about this back home? He knows. He's like, when he said, I want you to go for me. It's like, he's aware. It's like, he says, when you pray, don't heap up all these things. It's like, well, I need this. It's like, he already knows what you need. And it's like those 2 weeks, and did you guys have any conversations with coworkers? And they're like, oh, you're gonna be gone for 2 weeks. You're gonna be gone for 2 weeks, and what do you? It's like, oh, I'm going to Brazil. It's like, what are you gonna do in Brazil? Did you have any of those convos?
More so with the India deal, but like Brazil, of course, people are like, "Oh, where are you going? You going on vacation? You taking your family?" It's like, "No, I'm going on a mission trip." Oh,
bye.
Yeah, you guys gonna go build a hospital or something like that? It's like, no, we're gonna go teach people. Yeah, right. We're gonna go teach people the Word of God. Yeah. So
it's like you're spending all this money to fly down just tell me about the Bible. It's like the mentality on that. Did you have any conversations like that?
I remember the company I work for is it's a family-owned company. Okay. And the owner's son is taking over the company, right? Mm-hmm. And we were in a meeting. We had a planning meeting for a specific project, and it came up that I was going to be leaving for Brazil for 2 weeks. He's like, "Oh, what are you going to Brazil for?" And again, this is my owner's, soon to be owner of the company. It's my owner's son.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I'm going on a mission trip." And he's like, "Oh, you go to church?" He's like, "Oh, well, you should pray for me." And I was like, "I will right now if you like."
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to me. I believe they're Catholic, and so. It was just interesting to me that and it did open up a lot of other conversations. I mean, I interact with hundreds of people in a day that all support in various ways with this company, and so both before and after the trip, it was able to open up numerous conversations with all of these people as to, well, this guy's been gone for 2 weeks, and it was great. It was great.
And it's like, I think everyone, it's just like with any subject of Christianity, it's like, even if you're not a Christian or you are a Christian, everyone's got a perspective on things. Like, say, short-term missions isn't like some foreign concept to someone who's not even in the church. So it's like, oh, what are you going to do? It's like, I'm going to go tell you about Jesus. It's like, okay, it's like you're gonna spend 2 weeks doing that. It's like, you're not gonna do anything else. It's like, no, that's what we're doing. It's like, and then it's like, to you, maybe it's like, no, I totally get the value of why I'm doing this. But someone else, maybe like, it's like, I don't get why you would spend 2 weeks doing that. It's like, don't they know about it down there? My wife's really funny. I always joke with her because I always say, we're gonna go be missionaries in Iceland or the northern part of Greenland. She goes, there's churches up there where they're good. My wife's from Brazil, by the way, just so you know. So negative weather doesn't really suit her. But we always joke with her about that. And so, as far as I know, right now I'm not called to go to the northern or Greenland, but I never say never.
Yeah,
we'll
say yeah.
But yet, it's like, Lord, don't send me to Hawaii. No. So there was finances involved. It's like, in today's economy, everything. Being a family man, some people are working paycheck to paycheck. And it's like, oh, so this trip's gonna take this much money, and you're not going to be able to work for 2 weeks, or whatever, and so there's that. But it's like, again, that being led by the Spirit, it's like, and we actually just had a conversation recently about, and I totally understood it. It's like about us going on this next trip, and you were like, you were telling your wife, if Jory told us, hey, you want to go do sightseeing in Brazil for 2 weeks, you would have said, I would obviously said no. And it's like, then I was like, I totally get that.
Right.
I think that would be weird if I would have asked you to do that, So let's leave the wives' family, let's go to Brazil for 2 weeks. No, it's like, no, I get that, but that, it's like there's finances involved. Did you guys have any stories on that about, it's like, hey, it's going to cost this much money? No, you're like, let's go.
Between India and the first Brazil trip, it's like, if I know the Spirit's leading me to go, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, why worry about it? Because it's going to come into play.
Sure.
Yeah,
and I think when you go into like, especially your story, and so the Lord is, and there was a point where I just knew it's like, this is the team, and we're going, and so with that, something really interesting happened just about 3 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, no, I think it was 3 weeks.
3 weeks
because it was
before
right
the
on
trip.
the cusp.
Yep, right on the trip
of the timeline.
And it actually, God worked it out.
Oh yeah,
for
favor,
your
right?
good, right? It actually benefited you. But what happened about 3 weeks? What did you receive a report about 3 weeks before we're leaving?
So I was working in a hospital. I do construction by trade also, and so I'm working in a hospital for like 6 months previous to this, and I'm like, I can't be working in a hospital whenever COVID's going on, before I go to leave. So like, I'm gonna have to get out of here at least a month before I got to leave, and and I'm doing everything. I've been working in the hospital for 6 months, like I said, and then 3 weeks before it's time to go, I'm like, man, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to go get tested because you just got to know we're leaving in 3 weeks.
Well, let me kind of explain that. It's like, right this time, if anybody's traveled, there was laws, there was rules with immigration. Some things you couldn't even go if you had COVID, or there was all these things. I can't remember all the details. When this was happening, it was like, it wasn't just someone saying, oh, I might have COVID. It was, this could affect Micah not going.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because with the flights and everything, that airline company and all the restrictions, and then on top of that, the country of Brazil, all the restrictions. So so I end up testing positive for COVID, and in the natural, of course, I'm like, oh crap. So I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? And so now all this is going through my head, and I got to start figuring out, what do I need to do? What paperwork do I need to have in line? What test do I need to have? Because there was like 16,000 different tests.
Well, I think there was also something about like you had to test negative at a certain day.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I can't remember all the details, but like it had to do with like, you couldn't go if you didn't test negative on this day.
So I had to have, I don't even remember. It was so much. It was like, so if I tested positive, and it had to be the PCR test. So
Yeah.
the one I took wasn't a PCR test. So I ended up having to go get another test just so I could be,
Yep.
under their guidelines.
Yep.
So I had to have 2 positive tests within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that puts me out, within a week
Yep.
of the trip. So I go get the other test, and it comes back positive. I already knew it, whatever. And then so 2 weeks later, I go get my other test done, and I can't remember. Oh, you had to have, it was like the antigen test to say, like, hey, you're good.
Yeah.
So then the one that's 3 days before you have to leave, you got to have one within 72 hours
Yep.
of your flight.
Yep.
So that's the one I'm like, okay, my antigen tests come back good,
Yeah.
but I'm waiting on this other test. So I'm like, I'm freaking out because if it come back positive, that's what it was. If it come back positive, I had that antigen test to say, hey, I'm good. So, and it ended up coming back negative,
Yeah.
right? The day we was leaving, I think we got these in the email. So,
Oh yeah, we were at the airport. We got the emails. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do remember though you texting me and Luke.
yeah,
I don't think you were at church that day or something because you texted us. I think.
I took off of work.
Yeah, and
And
you
went
had
to go have
texted
this
us.
antigen test. Yeah.
And you said, "Guys, I've got COVID." And I think my response
yeah,
to you was
that-
something like, "It's like,
yeah.
okay, well, we'll get through it, and we'll see you. We'll see you when your 2 weeks is up."
And before that,
Yeah.
we got together here at the church.
Oh yeah,
The day before.
and that was the
day
thought
before.
was for us because actually I think at that point because it was all about time and I'm sorry we're not be able to describe this very well but there was something about if me and Luke had to go get tested it was going to be too far and we tested positive.
As he had said earlier, you needed 2 tests 2 weeks apart
Yeah.
to know that the test was faulty. Otherwise, they would trust the test.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to know that the test was faulty, to have the antigen test done, you needed 2 positive tests 2 weeks apart.
And
Well,
a negative antigen.
and a negative antigen test. Well, we had tested, or we had just met the day before, and he's like, "Hey, I've got COVID," and I was like, "Well, we don't have 2 weeks to get these 2 positive
Yep.
tests."
Yeah. And so but it's just that we knew we were going and I remember texting you just like okay well we'll get through the 2 weeks and we'll see you when you get back.
We're going to Brazil, is what you said.
Yeah, we're going to Brazil. So, and it wasn't a whole thing about disobeying law or anything. He's like, we were believing
Right.
he's going to get his negative test and we're going to go to Brazil. And so there was that part. That was cool. So, story short, you went to Brazil. Obviously, as we're, it's like, all right, Mike, you can
Amen.
leave. That was the end of his story.
Thanks for your help.
That's all we needed from you. Thank you. No, but he went. But so preparation, we didn't do a lot of meat because we were going to go a couple months before.
Yeah, it was going to be in like
Was it
March.
March?
It
Yes.
was March.
Yeah,
we
it
were
was
supposed
quite
to
a few
go in
months.
March.
Wow.
And we didn't go till August.
Something happened.
COVID. It was the COVID restrictions. They were not letting people out of the country.
Yeah, I think
what
they
it
just
was.
Brazil was shut. I think.
Yes, I think that was it. They weren't letting people.
And then just a very natural story, and you just kind of having to pray through things. A lot of the airlines were very generous about we're going to cancel every flight. We're going to give everyone credit. So time came for us to buy the tickets again, and I'm going to these airlines, and stuff, and I see tickets that are even cheaper than our first tickets. I'm like, well, that's great. We're gonna have extra, And so I get down through the whole process, and they're like, cool. And they, let's say the first ticket was $300, now it's $250, and we have $300 credit, And so I'm like, I'm waiting for them to go, okay, here's your ticket. And they go, all right, that'll be $472. I'm like, hold on, my math's not amazing. I'm feeling like this ticket should be free at least, They're like, well, we don't pay for the taxes. And then, it's just all these just very natural things you got to deal with in life. It's just like, but I was persistent, I was like, Lord, help me get this through. And, I remember it was funny. I kept calling this airline. It was some new salesperson. And they were just like, nope, can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that. So finally I called and some lady got on the phone. She goes, yeah, I can do that. It's just God's so good. So we started getting together. It was bi-weekly, maybe every 3 weeks.
Yeah, I don't
remember.
It wasn't consistent, but it was.
It's
We
like,
tried
hey,
to
can you guys-
tried to keep
can
it
we
together.
do this day?
Usually it was after a Sunday service, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We get together and someone kind of walked me through what we did. What was our preparation time?
So part of our preparation was actually language, because especially myself, not having ever been
It's
on
funny.
a mission.
I didn't even remember this part, but that's good. Go for it. I remember this part. Yeah, this is great.
Not having ever been on a mission or into a foreign country, first off, how do we deal with the language barrier? And so
Yeah.
one of the things we did was we practiced actually speaking through an interpreter, and we all laughed and goofed on ourselves. But
sure.
it was incredibly handy for what I did on the trip.
Let's stop there for a second. I want to kind of go in that deeper. because there's probably people watching who are going to go overseas, and stuff, and they're going to have a translator. Kind of walk, because my wife did that with you guys. It's like, I actually had you guys come bring a sermon. You had to bring like just a little. You could be talking about anything.
Short testimony.
Yeah, it was a testimony. That was right.
That's what it was.
And I want you to go ahead and once you continue, Luke. But it was my wife would translate for you guys in Portuguese. And I would sit in the crowd and be like, "Gloria, hallelujah," and which walk through how that experience was.
So it was really handy for me personally. Like I say, having never, I know a little bit about. My wife is a sign language interpreter, so I know a little bit about language. But words don't translate word for word. So you have to translate ideas.
Yeah.
And so first off, as a speaker, I speak. I try to articulate my thoughts. So the way I speak, my attempt is to articulate my thoughts. But then Jory is laughing in the audience because I'm trying to articulate my thoughts, and it's not. It doesn't translate word for word. And then because my translator doesn't know the words I'm saying, it also doesn't translate. It translates even worse. So it was a whole learning curve for me because I couldn't translate my thoughts. I like to make sure people are understanding what I'm saying, and it's incredibly difficult if you don't speak the same language.
Then you got Leoji standing there going like interpreting. She's like looks at you like, I have no idea what you just said.
Well, and that's the thing, because I remember there was times where you guys would use a very Midwestern-y phrase or like the way of talking, and she'd look at me, go, I'm like, well, hold on, that would be, you just say, I don't know, just some kind of Midwestern slang or something, and or you use some kind of Midwest, something that they don't do in Brazil, and stuff, and you're like, well, it's like this, and she'd be like, but it was. I think it was all about rhythm, because I think one thing I remember I kind of encouraged you guys to do, and this, people are going to be going out and doing this, with the translator, is go ahead as they're talking. Go ahead and start looking at your next thought.
Yeah.
Again, that was, I think when you guys first started, you guys were like, you're waiting for, you just listening to them to talk.
Yeah.
You're listening to them talking, and then you're like, okay,
yeah.
But then you guys, we did it a couple times. I think.
Yeah, we did. You translated for us one time.
You translated for us,
which I think was good, because I think. I can speak Portuguese, but you weren't always gonna be blessed with the perfect translator,
right.
And stuff. So messing with your rhythm, and it's like trying to stay on topic and keep your train of thought, and it was I remember that experience. That was fun.
It was incredibly helpful for me because I remember the first time we did that, it was very wooden. It was very structured, and as you said, I would speak, and then I would wait, and then I would speak, and then I would wait, and so every time there's this awkward pause and silence where I'm trying to get my thoughts back together, and you're like, hey, don't wait for them. Like, what are you doing? You have no idea what he's saying anyway.
Right? Are you saying it right?
Yeah. Like I have no idea.
Well, it's like, the thing is, like, it's like, let's say I was telling you guys, I was like, when we make it down there, it's like, hey, you have 30 minutes to preach, the pastor says, and you're like, it's like, you really don't have 30 minutes. You have 15. 15 it's like, you do not have that full half an hour. You are dividing it between two voices, and so it's like, you want to be go, 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 go. And, it is, and just getting that rhythm. And I remember you guys, you definitely, by the time you guys, I think if a church can do that, they're going to go into some country they're not doing. If they can get a hold of somebody who speaks, even, what? Let's say you're going to Brazil to speak Portuguese, but it's like, well, you're not going there, but it's like, I think you could just have someone get up there and just go blah 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 blah. And just to give you an idea what it's going to be like to have someone. Yeah. Let's say it's like, you're going to some Portuguese or some German country, but it's like there's someone in your church that speaks Spanish. Hey, hey, could you come to our meeting today and just help us just speak just translate it for us so we can kind of get an idea, because it's weird.
Yeah, just
when
get
you first
the feel.
Yeah. Because it is a feeling thing, because it's like, this is weird, because you're just like, you just want to go. I mean, I talk fast, obviously, and so it's like you're just, I've had translators go, I don't know, I have no idea what you just said, I remember an experience with me when I first got on the mission field. The first time I went to Africa, I was sharing an illustration. I was using an American idea. I didn't realize it was an American idea about marriage. But in that part of Africa, they don't marry like we do, with the last names, is what I was saying. I was trying to use an example of she takes your last name, and so the translator kind of just stops. And I was kind of like, he's not talking anymore, And finally, they're like, we don't do that here. And so this isn't going to make any sense. But it was really cool. I thank God for this translator. He was able to use what they use and give my illustration, And we and I remember that we did the whole translate. Actually, that's not where I was going with it, but I'm actually glad you brought that up. But as we prayed, we were praying for a translator, and we weren't just praying for a translator that would translate the words. We were translating someone that would translate the heart of the message. Yep. And I think that's very important. Now, we were very blessed. that we did pray about that because we got, I mean, Francis, if you're watching,
It was very blessed.
we are
Unbelievable.
so grateful for you. You were phenomenal. I remember being in Africa. I don't know how they did it, but I'm like, maybe someday God will use me as a translator, but man, just to be able to just go in one ear and come out your mouth the other. I was in Africa one time. There was this guy preaching, and I think there was 3 people next to him because there was like the colonial language, French or whatever it was. There was the 2 tribal languages, right? So he's preaching in English, right? This person's speaking in French, this person's speaking in whatever, and this one's the other Creole, and they're just. And I'm just like, that is phenomenal. I could not believe they could do that. I was like, because I'm like, I was like, everyone be quiet. I can't focus, But they were just like boom, 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 and yeah, that was just really cool. But do you guys remember anything else we were doing in the prep time?
We did go through some specific words because I remember, and actually that helped me a lot because when we got down there, iglesia is church, and it really helped me because I knew it from I knew it from before, and vamos orar, let us pray, and there were some phrases and things we went through that were really helpful because. It was helpful to recognize them in people's speech because when people are talking, it's handy if you have some rough idea of what they're saying, and that's one of the things we did is we went through words, just a group of faith-based Christian words,
like 10 or 12 words I think we went through.
That's right.
But even I remember you guys even learning those greetings and those thank you and you're welcome. And I think I'd share this with you guys. It's like, man, there is something about people taking the time to learn your culture and learn your language. It means that you care, and stuff. And I could tell they really appreciate when you guys would say thank you. And you would say, hello, good morning, And, of course, it was funny. You'd say good morning. They go, oh, they start blah, 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 blah. You're just like, so we did we practiced preaching, which I thought was, if people can do that, they're going on a short-term trip, they're going to another country, do it. It is so fun, and it's fun. It's educative. It gives you an experience. You're like, oh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. You'd rather learn that in a safe place in your church on a Sunday afternoon than right in the middle of you need to preach for 2 hours. I'm like, I'm really struggling at this.
I am not ready for this.
So that was another thing that you had brought up while we were there, is that the pastor, because you're a missionary in someone else's church, they may say, here's your 10 minutes. And so I did actually spend some time preparing a few messages in advance, just trying to listen to the Spirit and say, what might these people need? I didn't end up actually having that experience. I didn't have to. I think you did, but I didn't have to. I didn't have to give any. I gave a spontaneous message, but it wasn't because the pastor said, "Hey, Tag, you're it," and so, but it was actually helpful. The other thing we did that I liked was we actually started praying as a group, and I think there's an intimacy or a comfort level
about that,
that people if you're going on a trip with people, I think it's important to learn to pray with these people, both out loud, because if we're not comfortable praying out loud to each other, it's going to be difficult in front of people I don't know.
We're going to be living with each other for 2 weeks, and it's like
We might see sides of each other we've never seen before.
It's sides of each other. It's like, wow. I don't know how his wife stays with him. It's like grace upon her. But it's true. But I think I love. And we're gonna be doing that this year too. But the prayer that time, because that is actually what birthed the itinerary.
Yeah.
It was that time. I don't think the Beta Satan even was a thing before we started praying. No. We were just, the only thing I knew in my heart mandate wise was to go teach my people faith. That was the main mandate, was to go teach his people faith. And then as we prayed together, we would spend time we'd put some little low worship music on. We'd pray together. So you'd pray out, I'd pray out, we'd pray out. My wife was there sometimes. We'd pray. My wife has a heart for her country. She was there even though she didn't go with us. And we'd stop. And we'd like, is there anything on your heart? And we'd have journals. We'd write. It's like, this is really strong on me right now. I really feel like we're supposed to be doing this when we go down there. And cool things. I think there's times where it's like, I'm kind of getting that same. Leading on that, and I think it's be praying together as a group. Whoever's going, don't take advantage of that. Don't just go on a trip. It's just, for one, the devil doesn't want you doing this stuff,
right?
So he'll try to throw COVID at you, or he'll try to get relatives to try to get you ticked off. You want to
really?
You have a story about that?
Mine. Yeah. So. I always refer going back to India because that was my first trip, right? So whenever I first went to India, I went to my mom and I was like, hey, I'm going to India. And she was just like, oh my gosh, awesome, stuff like that, So, and I'm the baby of the family, so I've always had a special connection with my mom.
Sure.
And so we go, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table. My mom's right here on my right side, and my wife's across the table, and I kind of look at my wife, and I'm like, hey, should I tell her yet? And she's like,
You're excited.
She's
You're,
like, oh
you're
yeah,
excited,
right.
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah.
I see Amy do it.
And my mom,
Sure.
of course, she's like, what are you doing? So I was like, well, and she was talking about this worship movement that was going on at the time too. And she's like, why can't we have that here? I was like, well, it might be coming sooner than you think, and because, we had been talking about doing like some sort of a worship deal, but anyway, that's not the point. Then she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, we're talking about, getting into that and stuff, but I was like, it's going to start in Brazil. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, we're going to go to Brazil. And then she says, why Brazil? I was just like, never mind, whatever, I don't care. And she's like, and we both, kind of going back and forth and stuff, was both offended with each other. But I'm like, she's offended, and
how it always
we
goes.
start,
They're offended.
and that was it, So, and I go home and I'm stewing over it that night, right? And I'm just talking to him. I'm like, can you believe her? Like, that's not the reaction I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm praying and stuff, and I'm like, man, I was offended.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, snap, So anyway, I text my mom. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I got offended and stuff, and that's not the reaction I was looking for. I was looking for a. Sure. Awesome. You're doing.
And it's not even that they were
God
wrong.
wants.
No. It's just it's like, it's kind of like it's like I have this great God idea. It's like that's not what he's put in that person's heart, and stuff. So whenever you go tell him, it's like you're right there and says, "Amen. Here's $100." Or
right. No,
and it's like no,
you know
what I'm saying.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying though. But it's like sometimes we don't get the reactions we want, and we do get offended. It's like this is a God thing. It's like why would you not be excited about it? And it's like as your mom said, she's wanting to see something happen in America. That's
right.
Yes, amen, and stuff. And so sometimes we don't give people the responses we want, and
right.
we look back and it's like, yeah, I didn't need to react that way,
And I find it really interesting that we went to Brazil to teach us the basics.
Yeah, I know, right?
All
That
about
was-
offense,
yeah.
and the first thing leading up is we're offended at each other.
So
Yeah.
let's go there. So we I think it was during that time of prayer that we came up. We said we believe we're supposed to teach this, and I knew going into this that this church, God had been doing some things in this church that we were going to, and the enemy had been trying to stop those things through offense over the years. And me being kind of the foreigner, I love this church that we went to. I mean, they're family to me, stuff. And sometimes I feel like I'm like out guy. I can see because I'm from the outside. I can see it. And I'm seeing these things happening. I'm like, oh God has so much more for you guys, and stuff. And but there's so much offense, and there's just these silly things we're getting upset about, and stuff. And so we're praying, and I believe it was in our prayer times together that leading came that said we need to teach this when we go down there. And I think I approached you on it because I've always found that this is something I think you have a passion about. And one thing I think about Luke, you have no problem telling people it's like, you're offended, you need to stop.
Yeah, right.
We know better, and obviously I'm not perfect. It's like I get it right every time, but sometimes we need that. We need that. Just it's like this. I remember you said one time it's like you were talking to someone. It's like this sure sounds a lot like gossip, and I really don't want any part of it.
Amen.
And it's like you may make people feel awkward in that situation, but it's like we're not supposed to be gossiping.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to be offended. It's like an offense, and I think you had gotten a grasp of what it does to a person.
So I have, again, we've been blessed as church. We've been through some studies that have really opened the church up. That have really helped the church on a deep level. And I've seen the fruit of this study. And so, having seen the fruit of this study, I've been able to see. It gives you a different eye, if you will. It's like my eyes are open and I'm looking for this because it's something I've dealt with in the past. I've been offended before, I've carried offense before, and so having the ability to put the offense down, I've realized. Just like Micah's scenario. So Micah's offended at his mom, and his mom is offended at him, and it's caused a rift. Like they are slamming doors and not talking to each other, and it has just ripped a family apart. And this moms love their kids, and kids love their moms, and so these two love each other, and yet they're torn apart physically, emotionally, spiritually. These people are torn apart, and so, but when you've come to the table and we've had this training, you understand, you know what? I'm offended, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
And, it just came to me one time that if I have given my life to the Lord, I have no reason to defend it. And so, I watch these guys in the gospel. They're getting their heads cut off. They're getting crucified for because they've given their life to the Lord, literally. And so here we are. I've given my life to the Lord, but when somebody cuts me off on the road, all of a sudden I want it back so that I can defend it. I need no defense because He is my defense.
Come on.
Yeah.
And so here I am. Here I am, knowing I can see this, and so now I'm to that point. I can see this in people's lives, but it gives me a voice in their life, because like I say, you know what, offense is bitter, and it's causing bitterness in your life. And when you plant that seed and you let it grows into something terrible and ugly. Yeah,
It'll kill you.
No, literally. and so that's where we have been blessed as a church. Somebody brought this material to me, and this material has been able to grow. But I've also been able to use this material in our church to open people up to things that they weren't open to, and it also allows us to have an intimacy as members. Because if I'm mad at you because although you took my chair, basic silly stuff. I thought you stepped in front of me when we were coming in the door, or stuff that doesn't matter is holding our church back.
Yeah.
And all of the members in the church have given their heart to Christ, and yet they want to take it back to defend every little moment of their life, and it's not okay. It's not acceptable.
No. I think I need to backtrack. It's like, what's the Beta Satan?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, so there's a book called Beta Satan. It's by John Bevere. I've actually got a very personal testimony with that, because I was actually led to the book because I was offended, didn't realize it. I had just got off the mission field. Hey, we're talking about missions. I just got off the mission field. I mean, mountain of God experience for like 3 months. I am just loving this. I'm seeing the miraculous. It's just, I'm going back to America, to my church, and I'm thinking that's drier than the Sahara, and stuff. That's what I'm not saying that's what's going on, but that's my person. And I've even told guys, I don't want to go back to America. I don't need faith in America. La, la, la. Let me stay out here where the water is sweet, and you're doing so many great things. Well, I came back and I was invited to this church. Actually, no, I think I just came because I heard there was a new pastor and God was doing things here. So I came one Sunday and I'm sitting here in the service. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's good. And I'm like, God, send me here. I can plant myself here. And I told this in Chad's story. I told this in Chad as well. But in the end, the pastor lifts up a book. He goes, hey, and I don't even think it was part of his sermon. He was just, I know it was probably just a spirit. Hey, can you tell Jory this really quick? He goes, hey, if you haven't read this book, you should read it. That's like all he did, And so I'm like, I think Mom has it. So I read it. And literally everything he's talking about in the book is about all the reasons we leave our church that we think are good reasons. I'm not offended. It's justified. And he's like, John's like, you're offended. Yeah. And I'm like, and literally every example he's giving is every single thought I've had of why I should leave my church and come here. And I'm like, well, I'm offended, So I literally go back to my pastor and I tell him, it's like, I've been offended with you. I have not been receiving from you. It's not your fault. It's my fault. And as soon as I asked for forgiveness, he forgave me. Man, I started serving the church again. I started receiving Sunday morning. I'm like, it's just pouring in the revelation. God's pouring into me. It's awesome. I did this for about, I don't know, a couple months. And all of a sudden God says, all right, you can go to Balco now. And I'm like, but I knew why. Because if I had left 2 or 3 months earlier, I would have probably came in here I would have been a thorn in this church, because I would have came in with the same mentality I had in the other church, and and so this book has really been an impact on my life. And so we decided, and there was John Bevere, actually, Messenger app is what's called. It's on Android, it's on iPhone. I'm not, John didn't call me and say, hey, can you promote this? I would encourage every Christian to read this book. We need the Word of God, so I'm not trying to put this up to the level. It's not. Amen. But we're going to share with you by teaching the principles in this book, what it did in Brazil on this talk. And we didn't even know it until we looked back on the trip. But John Bevere wrote it, great minister. I really appreciate a lot of his books. I've read a lot of his books. I really appreciate a lot of stuff. I've grown from a lot of his studies and stuff, but he had it laid out as a study. So we're like, hey, let's take this to Brazil, and I encouraged Luke to, hey, would you take the helm on this, and take the lead on this? And so you did, and we started preparing. I think I put together the slideshow for you, but you put together how you were going to teach it and stuff. And I think we structured it. We were going to do a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, and there were 6 sessions. And we decided we're going to do 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then we'll finish at lunch and we'll eat with the students. And that was kind of the plan. So now it's time to go. It's time to go. We had one more prayer time together. I think it was the night before we left, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that was
Friday night.
best night ever. It
Right?
was so
man,
good.
that
And we were just praying. The Spirit of God was there, and He was just speaking. And I remember for me, I remember Him sharing with me. It's like Jesus. The reason Jesus appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. And the Lord reminded me, the body of Christ is still on the earth, and we are still destroying the works of the devil. That's still the mandate of the church. And stuff. And God said, "You're going to go do that." The church. And the thing, it wasn't even just us doing it. The church in Boa Vista is going to destroy the works of the devil. Amen. And so we're praying. We had a great night of prayer. Is there anything you guys remember from that night that kind of stood out to you?
I mean, I don't like keep going back to what I've already talked about it, but with all the COVID and the testing and stuff, so like I wanted to go the extra mile in the natural to make sure that I was good and clear, right?
Yeah.
So, and I remember by this time I'm cleared to go. I know I'm going, and I'm just like, man, thank God, And we're back there in the back praying the night before we leave, and I remember we got some worship music going, or no, you might have been playing the guitar or something, right? Yeah, he was playing the guitar and we was just worshiping, right? And I remember like I started crying because I I felt like God told me, He's like, you can trust me, right? Because I was putting all this trust in these tests and what I was seeing in the natural, right? And I was just like, oh my gosh, what if I can't go and stuff like that? And it's like God's like, see, I'll take care of it. You're meant to go. Trust me.
And I think you learn this from the Beta Satan book. Even it's like we honor our leaders in the natural, our president, our governments, stuff. And if they're telling us to do something, as long as it doesn't go against the scriptures, we're going to follow the rules,
right.
And and there was things within the code. I knew your heart was. It's like I just want to do what's right too.
Right.
It's like and there was a lot of people. This is still a new disease at this time. And people are freaking out. They're scared. And stuff. And you're trying not to cause it. It's like you said earlier to me. Or it's like Lord tells us, as much as it depends on you, walk in peace with everyone. You're not going to be able to do that with everyone, but as long as it depends on you, I'm going to walk in peace with everyone. And so I remember that. It's just and so we prayed. And so the next morning we all met in the parking lot. It was time to go. Of course, we all had to have our Hawaiian shirts, and I may have.
Maybe not all of us.
We might have had to stop.
It's
and get
argumentative
one.
that I didn't get one because I didn't want to. I don't know. I might have forgot. I don't remember.
Yeah, now we don't remember.
So they recommend that we stop on the way and get me one, and so we did, and so we got there, and so we left Kansas City. We flew to straight to Orlando. We went to Orlando,
yep.
And we had to stay the night because of the layover, and
5-star hotel.
We aren't going to sponsor this hotel on this show. Probably won't be going back there again. But we got up and we got to the airport. You guys, is there anything on your minds about even in the natural? Just things that that was new to you? Is there anything? I know that for me, I misspelled Luke's name wrong on every single ticket that I booked. Luke is spelled Lucus, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I spelled it Lucas. And I thought that was going to be a huge problem, especially with the international flights. But, it's actually, I think the hardest one was getting out of Kansas City. They were kind of giving us the biggest fuss. The international one was like, no problem.
Yeah.
It was kind of a pain. And then going through baggage check for my carry-on, I have a stack of books. I'm kind of a nerd.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I'm going to spend 15. There's 5 airplanes to get there. So
Kansas City. This is in Kansas City.
So we're in Kansas
Which
City.
I said, it's like, that's the easiest one to get there.
Yeah. And so we go through. I put the thing, goes through the X-ray, and they pull me aside, and they want to look through my bag, and there's I've got a book light in there with wiring on it, and there's books in there they can't see through, and so they're like, it looked like a bomb. The gal telling me like,
Book bomb.
She's like, it literally looked like you were hiding a bomb. She's like, I could not tell what those wires were.
Right.
It looked like a destination device.
Me and
This
Jory are
looked
standing
like
over there taking
C4.
pictures.
You got our iPhones out, just like, there's Luke.
Yeah, so I held this up. I held this up at every airport because my name was spelled wrong, and so at every airport we had to fix it. And then Kansas City was even worse, so I repackaged how we put that. But that was the only time I got stopped for that.
And I've always said people, it's like, they're like, I've got to leave out of KC in the morning. And I'm like, oh, you can be there an hour early. It's pretty easy. And that was probably the hardest part of the trip that Luke had with airlines.
Yeah.
And then we left Orlando and we had to fly to Panama
City, yep.
and we were
Yeah.
and so we landed in Panama and The other flight was pretty much leaving.
Yeah.
And so we walk out of gate 1, it seemed. I think it was a low 2-digit number. and we look at our tickets, our transfer flight, it says gate 300. I'm like, surely there's not 300 gates. Well, as you start walking, starting to speed up, you realize
2, 3.
It's going by ones.
there's 300 gates at this airport, And so by the end of it, I'm, in this airport, it's in the tropics, there's no AC strong enough to keep this thing cool. By the time we get to our airline, they knew we were coming. It's the same airline, so it was easy, but we are drenched in sweat. The stewardesses, they offer us water when we get on the plane. Oh, and we had to, on these flights, it's COVID, so we're having to wear masks the whole time.
I do remember we come in and she's like, "Oh, it's okay. We're waiting on one more."
Yeah.
And then when we're getting on the plane, there's a heavier set guy in the seat in the middle seat. I can see his face is beat red. He's covered in sweat. He just ran from the same airplane we did.
I felt like that airport was like the entirety of the country of Panama.
Yeah.
And like we just literally ran the whole country to get on the other plane. I was like, they're the same airline. I couldn't believe that they were. On the other side of the airport. They're both international. I was like, why are we doing it this way? I feel like there's a more productive way to do this. I don't know. Maybe I'll give them a recommendation.
Maybe we need a high-speed escalator to get us.
Yeah.
Well, they were all shut down. That was the thing.
They were.
Remember?
That's all the
They got the
escalators.
speed
We
walk
were hoping if we
escalator
could speed
things.
walk on the escalators,
Yeah.
I guess
No, I think
they
we
were
hit
all
one.
broken. Yep.
They hit one in the 3-mile walk.
And usually when you're in a hurry at an airport, I've found there's usually that stroller, the guy that he's just enjoying his day and he's just kind of zigzagging back and forth, and you're just trying to get around him, and it's like, oh, move, man. So we landed in Sao Paulo.
Yep.
Real late.
Yeah, it was late.
And we had to do a few things because now we're in another country. We're sharing these things in the natural because they're things to think about. It's like, why are you guys sharing all the? It's like these are things. It's like they're going to hold you up if you're not doing them right. For one, I am a resident in this country of Brazil, so I have a different immigration system than. They were coming as tourists. I was coming as a resident, and I'd been out for a while. So they had to, they had to take my passport to another room, and they had a conversation. They came back. Well, now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but they don't use American dollars in Brazil. So we had to get our currency changed. Now at that time, we decided I would just get some out of the ATM with my card because I had a Brazilian bank account. And so we stopped at their version of McDonald's.
Bob's Burgers.
Bob's Burgers. And it was literally like someone just built a McDonald's and they just kind of put new signage up.
There were a couple of minor differences, but the burger was identical.
Still better than airplane food.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt.
Well, you like did you like those? That was like the plantains, the fried plantains.
Oh,
I didn't mind them.
That was Luke.
Yeah, I like the flavor with the ketchup.
digging
Even
them,
they come with these are banana chips with ketchup. It was good.
Sometimes you just gotta get ketchup. You know what's going on.
I remember whenever we landed though in Sao Paulo, I remember getting my luggage and trying to pull the handle out so I could wheel it, and it's stuck.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
like, oh no, are you kidding me? Like, I hope we ain't got to walk far.
300
3
gates.
miles, yeah, right? So, like, I'm trying to pull this thing out, and I'm like, I got to carry my bag the whole way, and it's, 50 pounds, because that's what the limit is. So I'm, like, carrying this thing all the way to wherever we got to sit and rest, but,
We're
yeah, it
running
was just
with
another
the
one of those
Home Alone-
things.
with the Home Alone music.
Yeah.
He kept
playing.
singing it. I said,
Oh, no, this is
run,
Sao
run
Paulo.
off.
Oh,
This
I
is
got
that,
you.
late at
Oh,
night,
that's
and,
right.
but yeah.
I kept saying, we're not going to make it. So we get to Orlando. I think I already booked the hotel.
We're in Sao Paulo. We get to Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo, yeah.
Wow, backtrack. That's all right.
We're going to edit this part out. So we're in Sao Paulo. We had to get an Uber.
Yep.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Uber, but in Uber, you get to select what size of vehicle, and you can choose to pay a little bit more money to get a large. So one thing I found in Brazil, a lot of people drive really, 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 really small cars. And
Call them big.
so, yeah. And so I decided to get the XXL car because we all had three checked
3
luggages, and stuff. So I selected the XL or whatever it was. Was it? Did you know
XL.
what it was?
I think it's
Was
XL.
it XL.
Yep.
And it even showed the picture. It was like a big huge SUV. So we're waiting for this guy to show up, and he pulls up in this little.
Honda
It's
Civic.
kind of a.
It was a
Oh,
small
it was a
car.
car. That one was a
It
car.
was a
Yeah,
car,
you're right.
and I remember did we have to pile the luggage on you two?
I think we had to
Yeah.
handle our bags.
Yeah,
because I had to translate. I had to be up front, and I had to have that
yeah.
space so I could,
Glad you
speak to.
enjoyed
He
it.
was the
so.
special one.
Yeah.
And so we didn't drive very far. And did I already book the hotel?
Yes.
Had
I think it was already booked.
Yes.
So I got so Someone tell that experience.
So we're roaming around in the dark in Sao Paulo, and obviously my first experience in a foreign country, and it's
Let's stop there because you just got to your first foreign country.
yeah. So actually, the airport was really nice. I was really impressed with how clean, how nice the airport was. And then we got in the streets. It's like the air is a little different. It's almost like we're in a downtown scene, and so it's not. It doesn't feel as clean. It feels like maybe somewhat neglected. It's a little industrial. I'll call it that.
Yeah, Sao Paulo is. It's
So the area we flew into was a little industrial, and then we're cruising around in this car, and this guy's driving, I don't know, twice the speed limit roughly. I mean, I'm reading the sign and reading the car, and I don't know much about kilometers, but I know we're going faster than the sign.
I know numbers. That says 20, that says 40.
That's exactly right. So we cruise around for a while, and we pull up this sketchy place that has there's a guy and a gal like making out over by a motorcycle, and I'm sitting here thinking, hey, we're about to get mugged, and that's really what it looked like.
I remember thinking, are we sure this is a hotel?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The hotel. It looked like an abandoned.
It looked sketchy.
There was no lights on the outside, really.
No,
It was just
dark.
a brick building. It
My
looked
Google
very
Massive
industrial.
front door.
Yeah.
My Google Maps showing we're here, and I'm like, this can't be it.
The Uber driver's like, oh yeah, this is fine. This is
Because
it.
when you book a book a hotel, it shows you pictures of the rooms and the lobby and stuff. And I'm like, Robbie, this can't be it. And all of a sudden, I get out of the vehicle to check if it's it, and all of a sudden the door just opens.
It's like an automatic door, and this thing's like 18 inches thick,
Right.
like 12 foot tall,
like a
by
castle
5 foot
door,
wide. It's
right?
great big doors opening up, and it looks way better on the inside.
Yeah.
Oh, inside this lobby's gorgeous. It's like
The marble tile. It was a beautiful
just
lobby.
walk through the wardrobe of Narnia.
Yeah, exactly. I was a little before we got out of the car. I was pretty nervous. I was like, I don't think this is right spot. Jory, this is not. That guy probably has a gun. Like we should not be getting out of here. The Uber driver is out to get us.
Yeah, and so we got inside and we got to our room. It was a 3-bedroom, like they're probably even smaller. They're not even twins.
Well, they were
No,
not
they were
twins. They were
more
small.
narrow.
Yeah, sure.
And there was 3 of them in there. The room was just one big, huge rectangle, and not definitely way different than like the American traditional hotel room. Very high ceiling, the windows all the way around, but then there was I remember the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember Luke coming. I think you were the first to take a shower, and you came out. I was like, I just want you guys to know there's like peepholes of the shower. He's like, what?
upstairs.
You go, it's like, yeah, sure. I was like, surely that's not what that is. But it's like it looked like it was like there was nothing upstairs. It looked like it was.
Yeah. But you can see up there, which means there's probably light up there.
Yeah.
But you can definitely see through these peepholes.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not exactly bashful. I was like, well, if they're looking this way, they're creepy.
I've
I don't
been
care.
on like 3 airplanes. I just want to take a shower.
Yeah.
And I remember the water was like liquid hot magma. It's like there was hot,
like fine-tuned.
there was hot, then there was like this little millimeter of like cold water you could get into that mix, And so we tried to go to bed. We were just full of joy.
This is the first night.
Well, I mean, I think there was an excitement, especially for you. It's
Yeah.
like, this is surreal. I'm in Brazil, and I was excited because it's like I love seeing people experience this. And for me, it's like Brazil's a home to me, and so I'm taking people to my home. I know that's very maybe it's a little selfish in a sense, but I'm not trying to make it that. I'm showing you guys my home, and it was so cool, and I got to bring them here, and this is so cool, and we're gonna do some amazing things with God, but we were all just laughing for hours. It was. Then we just passed out, and then you said there was like a party going on, didn't you?
Oh, I don't know what it was. It was
We didn't hear it.
I sleep like a rock.
No, yeah. Well, I was next to the door.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
yeah, I don't know. Somebody's coming down the hallway and like stomping or running and playing music. And it's just
It seems like that always happens. It's like, did you hear all that? I'm like, no, I didn't hear nothing.
like you just fall asleep and then it's like you wake back up because something.
And it's we're going to talk about this, the cultural differences. It's like things that you think are very rude. It's not rude in that culture, and things you say in this culture you don't say in this culture. And Brazil comes alive after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's like during the day it's pretty quiet. And then all of a sudden it's like everyone turns on their speakers at 10 o'clock.
As
Are
loud
you all
as they
sleeping?
can.
We're not. And then we got I made like 5 alarms scheduled.
Oh yeah, we was gonna make sure.
Well, and it was a God thing. Do you guys remember? You asked me, what time should we set the alarms? And I was like, no, we don't have to get up till this time because the plane doesn't leave till this time.
Yeah.
And I don't know who checked the ticket.
I think Micah did.
And I was like, well, it was like, oh my gosh. And there was something about it. We're like,
I can't remember
thank you,
exactly
Lord,
timing
because
wise.
we would have totally missed the flight.
I think he checked online because we had the ticket, but I think they had changed
There's
the
an
flight
app or
time.
something we can.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have checked. We wouldn't have checked if that wouldn't. It's like, well, what time do we have to be up? It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's this time. It's like, well, it doesn't say that anymore.
Yeah.
So thank God, because we would probably have still made it to Boa Vista, but we would have been probably a day later and
lost a
stuff.
day.
And so we had a pit stop in
Brasilia.
Brasilia. Was it
Yeah.
Brasilia? And we were there. We had a quick stop. It was quick.
Yeah,
I don't even think we ate. Did we eat?
Yeah,
we did.
we sat and ate
Did
at
we eat
Bob's.
that
There's
time?
Bob's.
There was a Bob's there.
Was
There's
it Bob's
Bob's
there?
there.
Yep. So we left there and we got to Boa Vista and we got picked up by one of my best friends in the world, Kiko.
He wasn't at the airport, so we were a little nervous.
Yeah.
I told you guys, go to the bathroom. I think I'll look for him and stuff like that. And, oh no, because when we got off the flight, it was there was something funny about you two, and I can't remember what it was.
It was Luke.
Was it Luke?
What'd I do this
Yeah, it
time,
was
What
Luke?
was it?
He says, we're walking down the terminal, right? You don't remember this?
No, I've
And
not.
there's
To get our luggage, we're going to the luggage
there's
place.
this gal walking in front of us, and he's just looking out, and he says,
Weren't you filming? Wasn't he filming?
"Oh, I'm filming. Yeah, I got my GoPro going." And he's like, "Gloria to Deus," like that. And this gal turns around and looks, and she's like, "What is wrong with
what
this
is wrong
white
with this
guy?"
Tourists. Of course, me, I'm just like, I don't know them. They're not from
It was
here.
just
I,
funny
did, I
because she's
remember
just
that
like,
now. She,
like sped walk up. She's
And
like,
then I remember you guys waiting for your luggage. You guys are talking in English. And everybody just keeps kind of looking.
Yeah.
Who are these guys? Because it's funny about Boa Vista. It's like when you go to do tourism in Brazil, you go to Sao Paulo. You go to
Rio.
You go to Rio. You don't go. So
don't
Boa
go to
Vista
Boa
is like at the very, 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 very top of Brazil, and it's just like out in the middle of nowhere. There's people in Brazil who don't know where Boa Vista is. And so when they hear it's like, what are these Americans doing in Boa Vista?
I remember we arrived in Boa Vista. It was my first actual culture shock moment.
Right.
Because I tend to be, I will let anybody on the bus before me. I will be the last guy on the bus if it means I don't have to be rude to somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm always really patient. I'm just like, oh, no,
This
I can
is a
wait.
great point. Go, yeah.
I can wait. It's not a big deal. And actually, it started in Brasilia because there was a shuttle that had to take you to the plane.
Yeah.
And so we're all trying to get on the shuttle, and they're like, hey, you have to shove your way in there.
I had
like,
to tell you that.
Yeah, Jory's behind me, and he's like, hey, get on the bus. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, well, there's people. Yeah, get on the bus. And so we shove our way in, and then we get to
It was getting off plane too. Remember, it was like
Yeah.
It was.
aisles 1 through 7 can leave now, and everybody in the back plane's like up here. And
They're-
it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah, I'll get to that later because I didn't realize that till we were coming home.
Yeah.
how just crazy different it was. But then we got to Boa Vista, and these guys are shouldered. You're not gonna get your bag if you don't. My bag is coming around the corner, and
Yeah.
I literally had to push somebody out of the way to get my bag, and I was just like,
And the
that
only
is
reason
not who
I ever
am.
told you
Right.
that, and it was because I had to go through the same thing like a couple years before I got married on one of my first mission trip, and we were on a bus, and like this bus is like stopping at stops like very quickly, and this bus has got probably 30 people more than the seats are. A lot of people are standing. And I remember I'm trying to be that loving guy, and stuff, and courteous, stuff. And the pastor who was leading the trip, he's like, "Get off the bus, Jory!" And it's like if you don't move, we're gonna be on this bus all day. And I was like, man, this was so hard because I was like, yeah, I want to let people go ahead.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
then the bus is moving.
And then you've let. It was like you had to realize we're never gonna get off the bus, and we're never gonna get off the plane. We're never,
And I did come to realize it's just a cultural difference. They expect you to push in and get your stuff.
And we'll talk more about laws later because you made a point about that. So Kiko picks us up, and a little bit about Kiko. Kiko's one of my best friends. The reason Kiko and me have such a connection is because when I first came to Brazil the first time, I was trying to learn the language, trying to understand the language, trying to understand people and stuff. And they'd talk with me, and I'd say, I don't understand. I want them to say it again, and they wouldn't. They'd be like, oh, well, never mind. Well, Kiko, he would take the time with me. He'd spend hours with me, teaching me the language, teaching me how to say, like, even it's like, you're not pronouncing it right. He'd be like, and he was funny and all that stuff. But he was just full of love, he was patient with you and stuff. And so we really connected that way. So I was so excited to see Kiko. And we got in his truck and we started driving. I think right then you get the culture shock of how they drive in Brazil.
Yeah, it was actually a surprise to me because they had like paramilitary guards at the airport.
Yeah.
And there's this guy running around full tactical gear. Looks like he's got grenades on his belt, and he's just walking around the air. Yeah,
strapped too.
Strapped. Yeah, he's got a big weapon on him. It was a surprise. We don't obviously security guards here don't have all that.
Right.
And so and then we got into a 5-speed Toyota Hilux pickup truck, and I had never seen one of those either. So
But that was when we came back. But you saw a couple vehicles that were
yeah,
they
even
didn't have
Similar with a different name, though.
yeah, it's like the old Chevy. I can't remember what it was called now, but it had like a B something or a B13 or something. It looked like an '85 Chevy square body, and I was like, really?
And I think a lot of times it's like in other cultures, like they don't have that name or that type of thing, so it doesn't make any sense in their because they have to think about selling it. these companies have to think about selling them in these countries. You know, it's like a simple illustration. Did you ever hear about the A&W? They tried to sell a burger that was the third pounder.
Oh yeah.
And people would buy it because they thought 4 quarter pounder was bigger because 4 is a larger
4 is
number.
bigger.
You know, it's like you have to think about these things when you sell things. So like when they go to Brazil, it's like we can't call it this. It doesn't make any sense to these guys, you know, or whatever. So they, you know, that's just something to kind of note there, you know. But so you'll see cars like, well, that looks exactly like the vehicle we drive in America, but it's not called that, you know. So we're driving, you know, and you notice there's like a speed bump every 30 feet.
Yeah.
There's a speed bump. It seems like it's about every 300 feet. It's long enough, you get up to the speed limit, and then you have to slow down.
Yep.
And it's almost like what they're saying to you is, you can drive as fast, the speed limit is 35. You can drive as fast as you want, but it's going to cost you a muffler. Like, you know, and so everybody's like,
And they were mountains. They were just
it was a full-on speed bump. Yeah.
You know, and you know, and we get the stop signs, and you know, the truck's nose is 7 feet past the 7 feet past the stop sign.
Oh my! I thought we were gonna get hit that first. I'm like, stop, go.
No stopping. Just a continuous.
But the whole thing about courtesy, you know, it's like you have to put yourself forward. And it's like you have to do that even with traffic, or you're going to be stuck in traffic all day. It's like because there's no. It's like these cars are just going. It's like
they're not going to wait on you.
You know, it's like I'm used to. You know, we're from the northwest of Missouri. You know, so someone's like, oh, "Come on in," you know, and stuff. You know, I get down to Kansas City, and they're like, "Nope,
Yeah, right.
my lane."
Well, what was it that you would keep saying though?
They're not laws; they're suggestions.
Yeah.
It's like all these laws are so like where we think there's an internal rule of law in people in America, and I didn't realize it. So I just thought people all over the world were this way, and they're not. Because in Brazil they engineer that into the culture. So here we don't. If you want to drive 40 on a 35, a lot of people don't because they're afraid to get pulled over. But there's no engineering rule that says you can't drive 40.
Yeah.
But there's a speed bump.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to shoplift, there's a guard. They had a guard tower at the supermarket that was like 30 foot tall and had a paramilitary guy with an AK walking around the top of it. You can shoplift if you want, but you're not going to make it out of the parking lot.
Yep.
I mean, there was another guy at the exit. Like it's just there's an engineer. The walls were new to me.
Yeah.
So down on the streets there's a sidewalk and then there's a wall where we drive down the street. You look in everybody's front yard and they'll have decorations. These guys have walls, and you can tell how wealthy they are based on how their wall looks.
Yeah. Right.
What's on top of it? If they have razor, I saw more Constantine wire than I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. Because everybody.
Is that the prison over there? No, that's just
that's
Bob's
Bob's
house.
front yard.
Bob's
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, and you could tell how wealthy they were because if they didn't have Constantine wire or electric fence, they had glass mortared into the top of their wall, and it was a complete culture shock to me because we have a yard, and I will say as Americans we also have guns, and if you step into the wrong yard to steal their stuff. Right. You will have to pay. There is a consequence for that, right? And it's sometimes it deals with the police, other times it deals with the homeowner. Yep. And that was one thing Kiko did say. He said that they confiscated their guns. They took all of their guns. He said you have no defense. He said my wife is not safe in my house without this wall.
So it's the wall, the doors are barred, the windows are barred. You know, and we got to Kiko's house. We had a
Maracuja.
Yeah, best juice on earth. It's like if you ever need a reason to go to Brazil,
I think the only thing comparable is that limeade lemonade stuff that Giselle made.
So Maracuja is passion fruit, and stuff. But it's like it's not just any passion fruit because it's like I remember going to Kansas City. They have a Brazilian restaurant. They was like, "Do you guys ever do Maracuja?" I said, "The only ones they sell here are from New Zealand." I said, "Oh, it's like it's totally different." He says, "So it's not something you can just get any passion fruit. It's a Brazilian passion fruit." And I didn't know you have to have it with sugar because I just thought it was something that there was just one way to make it. And I remember one time I went to Rio and we just got to Brazil. I was like, the first thing I'm doing, get me a cup of Maracuja. So I go to this restaurant and I'm like, I like Maracuja, and she goes, sem açúcar, and I know that means without sugar. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. No, you want sugar. Yeah. You want the sugar. It adds.
It's the opposite of coffee. With coffee, you don't want sugar.
Very, very. Oh, speaking of coffee. So funny story. So anyway, well, let's see. So we were gonna stay at the church. And Kiko's just wonderful. We didn't ask him to kind of be our chauffeur, but he that's just who he is. He just, wherever you guys need to go, let me know. He lives like literally just around the corner from the church. So we were standing in a classroom. This is your guys' first experience with hammocks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't, you didn't sleep in them. Nope. Yes. So
Slept on a bed.
Yep. We had beds in India, but
I do want to admit I'm not exactly a fan. It's like an air conditioned bed, and so we were
you were
really
freezing the first night, weren't you?
we were really blessed. The room we had air conditioning. So for the record, every day we were there was 85 to 88. Feels like 99 to 103.
Yep.
So the humidity is super high. I mean, I even made a comment later that I thought I was starting to mold. I mean, the humidity was super high. So we were really blessed to have an air conditioner at all. But it's in Celsius. I mean, I don't know the conversion rates, and I didn't bother to look it up on Google. We
Right.
turned the thing on. There's cold air coming out. We're good. I wake up in the middle of the night. There's no blanket. All we have is the hammock that we're sleeping in.
Because you guys were going to go buy blankets, weren't you? Yeah.
Well, we was under the impression that we was going to have blankets and pillows.
Yes. Yes.
And then Kiko's like, no.
Yeah.
Hammocks. Like,
Kiko, it's a funny thing about Kiko.
Yeah, so it's like you're sleeping in an air conditioned bed, and apparently 25 degrees Celsius is too cold.
Yeah.
Because I my teeth
it
chattered.
was like 60 or something. I don't remember
I have
exactly what it was.
Never been so cold in my life,
Yep.
and I'm directly in front of this thing,
Yep.
and so that begins my first sore throat moment.
Oh yeah.
And I was even nervous on the way out that maybe I had caught COVID while I was there, and like later when we're leaving, I'm afraid I'm not going to get to fly out of the country, and that'll be something we'll probably talk about later.
Yep. And so we got to the church, and pastor wasn't there. The pastor lives there. He lives above us, and he shows up later that night, and we actually got to meet the translator. I think Francis came that night too, right?
Yep.
And
We had American pizza pizza with French fries.
was it French fries on the pizza?
Yeah.
I think there was.
You liked it, didn't you? You loved it.
It was all
I
right.
liked
You know.
it.
Oh, I thought,
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah, it
I
was
thought
good.
someone was like, "Yeah, this is good." It
was good.
I don't think I was a fan.
I take French fries on my pizza all day.
And ketchup.
And
Getcha.
we met Francis, and so the pastor sat down, and this pastor, let's just do an intro to him real quick.
Oh, amen.
He's a little touchy feely. We'll start
Wonderful
there.
guy, though. I mean,
Great guy.
That is his love language.
Great guy. Yes.
yeah, and that was a culture shock, especially for you guys, because I've been in countries where some people are a lot more touchy,
Oh, yeah.
and stuff, and
India, too.
but he was very. I remember the one thing he said all the time, and it just really stuck with me. He said, "I have the privilege of preaching the gospel."
Amen.
Yep.
It's like he didn't earn it. He knows he didn't earn it. That just humbled me. I was like, because I was gonna have the opportunity to preach 3 nights in a row in this church, and I didn't earn that right. He was, he's the pastor, so she could be like, I don't know who you are. I shouldn't let you be in front of the sheep. Whatever. But he had the privilege and the honor of preaching the gospel to the people of Boa Vista, and I just really respected that. And he was just a gospel guy. Always scripture was coming out of his mouth. Always praise God, hallelujah. God is so good. So he sat down with us the first night. And I remember him asking me, "It's like, so why did you guys come?" Which is funny because I'm like, kind of taken back. I'm like, well, you said yes to this like months ago, so I'm like, I hope you're not like having second thoughts, But I remember the scripture that was really on my heart. And it was out of Romans chapter 1, and it was when Paul said Paul hadn't been to Rome yet. It was he was writing this letter saying, "I want to come. I want to see you guys." And he said the reason he wanted to come. It says this in verse 11. He says, "For I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gift, that you may be established. That is, that I may be comforted together with you by a mutual faith of both you and me." Amen. And it's like, it's funny. You look back now, it's like that was how that trip went, So because it's like, you ask, you'd say, "So was it about me or is it about that?" It's like there's no escaping. It's going to impact you no matter what you do and what you choose not to do. It's like and we were so blessed by that church. They're just wonderful people, and their faith was so encouraging. And we were, like I said, their mutual faith we were comforted by, And that's why I share with Pastor. Like we want to bless you. We want to see you guys a step closer into the will of God than you were yesterday. If that's all we do, we just get you to a higher place just by encouraging you and teaching you. We're thankful, And God did way more than a step. And so that was nice. We had our first night. So back to the kind of we slept. Someone was snoring. I'm not sure who that was.
Yeah.
That first night, first off, it was really late. I mean, we stayed up late into the night.
But that was, I think every night was like that. Though.
I think every night. Yeah, I mean, the culture is definitely a little reversed. They're a little laid back during the day because
they
it's
love
so hot.
fellowship, though. I think they just want to. It's funny because like we noticed, like they'd be like, I'm ready for bed. It's like, well, you want to go eat? I'm like, Really?
11 o'clock at night.
Don't you have to work tomorrow? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we can do that. And so we met Francis, who was our translator. Like I said before, it's like we prayed. It was like, God, we want the translator who will translate not only the word but also the heart of God, the message. And Francis, if you're watching, man, again, thank you so much. And we hope that that wasn't the last time we get to have a time of ministry with you. Francis loves the Lord. Francis is on fire, and it was so exciting just to have him be a part. There was times where we'd be preaching, and Francis was just, he'd translate, and he'd kind of just take off. And it was like, there was nothing, he was like, hey, it's he was like, take it, brother. Go. And so we met him, and was there anyone else we met that night? We met a couple people. Kika was there. I know.
Kika was there. I feel like Burrito might have been there.
Did Burrito come that night, or did he come in the morning?
Oh, he definitely.
I felt like
came in the
Burrito came in
morning.
the morning.
He came.
Burrito was.
Burrito was in the morning.
He was the worship leader, and I've known Burrito for a wonderful man of God.
Yep.
Actually, I think he just became a pastor. Actually,
Really?
I think he just got laid hands on leadership. I think so. I think my wife told me that, and so he's going to be a wonderful pastor.
Yeah, he has an air of leadership that,
He
that
loves
he walks
people.
with.
I mean, he just loves people. He's very humble too. He's like, again, the other guy's not like, I earned this. I earned this position. He was, it's like, he just wants to serve God. He wants to serve people. And it's funny because he's the worship leader. And what I think was really interesting about him, usually you see who's the worship leader. They sing great. I'm not saying he doesn't sing great, but it's like they sing great. They've got some instrument they play. He leads. He's an administrator in a way. It's like he didn't really lead it when it came to like the singing or the but he was able to keep when they practiced. He was like, this is what we're doing, and he kept the group on the right path, and that's what I love about him. Yeah. And so I think so then we woke up, had our first morning. I don't know if we slept much, but Luke was freezing.
I think it was a lot of laughter again that first night, actually.
Yeah, we were,
before we
just that
actually
surreal
went to
moment.
sleep.
It's like, I can't believe we're here,
Yeah.
And
Went to the bread store.
was that? We had. Well, we had to go grocery shopping.
Yeah, we had to go
We did
grocery
have to go
shopping at some
grocery
point.
And that was a funny experience because so if you guys don't know Luke, some of you will, some of you won't. Luke is a coffee drinker. I don't know if you know, but he's not just a coffee drinker; he is a coffee drinker.
I like
Avid.
He likes
like
coffee.
Yeah.
And so we decided, hey, Kiko, can you take us to the store? We would like to get some supplies because lunch we would eat normally. Well, sometimes we went out, but we try to have just food at the place. We didn't want people, we came to serve. And we really tried to do as much as we could not to have the church having to do stuff for us. When Paul went to some of these cities, he worked. He made tents, and stuff. Why he was doing the ministry, he made sure. It's like, even in one letter, I think he even talks. It's like, I made sure that me and Timothy, not a penny was used on us. It's like we made sure that our needs were met by our strength, And it's like, I don't want to be a burden to the church, For one, we use the air conditioner there, and the electrical bills in Brazil are ridiculous and stuff. We always kept that in mind, stuff. So if you're going on a trip, try to keep, we're going to serve people. These mission trips, if we do decide to go on a short-term mission trip, you're going to serve a church. And, some of these countries, getting $100 is hard. It's a lot for a church. It's a lot, even just $50, it's a lot for a lot of people. Just be mindful of that, when you keep lights on. I think we were very strong about it. It was like, hey, turn that light off. Let's keep that light off, and stuff, because it's like...
We tried to make sure we didn't run the AC during the day.
Yeah.
It was just for sleeping most of the time.
Really. And I think it's good. That's, it's like to love you. It's that, and I knew that church would be like, it's like, keep the AC on all the time. We knew that would be a huge amount of money for them. It's like, now they would have been like, we don't care. It's like, yeah, we do. We do. We love you. We want you guys. There's things where that money can go. It's like, and we brought the money we needed to do what we needed to do. We're going to be okay. I think we were able to, at the end of the trip, we were saying, I don't even think it was planned. We just decided, let's give some money for the AC bill.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for it, but we decided, let's just do that. So we went shopping, and you guys kind of had an experience of what that kind of store was like. You thought that was kind of interesting.
In the peak of COVID, right? All the stores here are just bare shelves, and you can't even get bread, right?
Yeah.
We walk into this place, and it is stacked to the ceiling. It's like a Sam's Club, right?
It's like 4 Sam's Club put together.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Massive, and stacked to the ceiling with supplies.
Full of food. People are carrying around 50-pound, 100-pound bags of rice just on their shoulder. The stack of beer out front is the size of most Walmarts. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And that's just the beer. Now again, nobody steals it because the guard has an AK trained on it. But and then you go in and the meat counter, sausages, and you name it. This place is full. It was unbelievable.
And that's just, there's not just one store in Boa Vista like that. There's like
Right.
4 or 5, and I know you guys, there was like a guard tower out in the parking lot. You thought that was kind of funny.
It was unbelievable.
So I didn't really remember that.
There was a guard tower. It had to be 30 or 40 feet tall.
Yeah.
It was, and it had a walkway all the way around it with a guy walking around. And I was like,
With his sniper rifle. No.
Well, he did have a rifle.
Probably.
I mean, it looked tactical though, more like an AK or something to that effect. But
No shoplifting.
no shoplifting at this place. They were serious, and they had.
They were probably just like, you can if you want. But
Well, yeah,
I wouldn't
yeah.
risk it.
This guy needs an eventful day or something. But they
I'm
definitely
so
had.
bored.
Yeah, they definitely had like the razor wire and the fence all the way around the place.
It's just such a different. You're just like, what is this? It was like a whole different planet, And we went in. We bought we wanted to get some bread, some ham, and some cheese, and
Eggs and
just
stuff, I think,
things
didn't
to
we?
have. Breakfast was the main thing we wanted to make sure.
Coffee.
So yeah, we got to the coffee. Like I said, Luke likes coffee. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Did I mention that earlier?
I don't remember.
I drink coffee.
So
I drink coffee.
so Luke, now when I say coffee, I'm not talking sugar or cream. I'm talking coffee. Like grind up the beans, and that's all I want. Actually, you probably just choose on beans sometimes.
No, I like black coffee. I like the flavor of coffee.
No, that's fine. It was just really funny because in Brazil, apparently this is a foreign concept. So, first of all, he wants coffee. So a big thing in Brazil, they're really big on, in a lot of places, just instant coffee. Just powder, just stirring it into the hot water, right? So we're going through, we get to the coffee, hey, Kiko, we need to get some coffee. The guys like coffee and stuff. Micah drink some coffee.
I'll drink coffee.
Yeah, and
Not black.
no, I like my creamer and sugar with a little bit of coffee. And so we get to the section. He just grabs a big thing of instant coffee.
yeah.
And he puts it in the cart and he starts going on. And I just remember looking at Luke, and Luke's just kind of, you can just tell he's really struggling.
Just like, is that what we're getting? Is that what we're gonna drink?
It's
We're
like,
gonna
but it's
drink
like you're looking at me like it's like you're gonna fix this, right?
I was looking at him like, have you ever had that? Have you tried that? Like, that's not drinkable. It's like I didn't know the brand, but I have seen this stuff before. It's not even incognito. I've seen this.
I think there was a little bit of humbleness too, because I remember Jory being like, is that going to be okay? And you'd be like, yeah.
Well, this
Because
is
you
what
were
they
trying
do.
to, you were trying to
Yeah.
be, it was just so you could just tell you were struggling. And I just kind of I was like, there's a store on the corner. Tomorrow I'll get some more. So Kiko, if you're watching, truth's out.
No,
I probably told
I
Kiko
was
this.
trying. I was trying to be kind. I was trying to be kind,
yeah.
but
When I could just see it
do
in your
better.
eyes, you were just like, fix this. So we, and the church, we're just walking up 20 feet from the church. There was a little grocery store, and the people actually attended the church quite often and stuff. And then Kiko's house was right next to that store and stuff. So we were in that store quite a bit. But I went and got some. But of course, making coffee was a fun experience as well.
so making coffee was a lot like pouring hot water through a sock. Like, it literally looked like an old stretched out gym sock on a wire ring, and you just hold it over the coffee, the thermos we were pouring it. So you got to boil the water in advance, and so it was an event. And you slowly pour it through the old gym sock.
Well, then you got to let it sit. Then you go back and
Because it
dump
would
more
fill
water.
up. You'd be like,
Yeah.
I was just waiting.
A couple more minutes.
Did they give us a coffee machine eventually?
No,
Well, that's how we made it every day.
That's how we made it every day.
morning,
They offered
whatever.
us one.
Oh, I'm thinking about when you guys got lazy and didn't want to do the wash machine anymore.
Oh yeah, no, that wasn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll close
No,
watching.
we'll
That's
get to
later.
that. So